Live tonight from iRacing's virtual Rockingham Speedway in Rockingham, North Carolina, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to round 6 of the 2022 Real Sim Racing Sim Speed Shop Winter Series. We are into the second half of this campaign, and we are excited as always that you're spending your final Monday night of the year here with us on RaceSpotTV alongside Nolan Rempel, myself, Evan Pasoko, with our technical director downstairs, Hugo Luis. And Nolan, good to have you back after a couple of weeks. We're now halfway through this championship, 5 down and 5 to go, and some things have stayed the same. Andrew Freenosh is still the guy with the target on his back. However, the gap is close enough, and we've seen enough speed out of the drivers 2nd through 5th or so in the championship that I think it's still a little bit too early to rule this championship done with, especially coming into a very unique racetrack like tonight at the Rock.
It is unbelievable how quickly this first half of the winter season has flown by, and as we get set to kick off the second one here, I mean, it is going to be an absolutely thriller of a race. When you talk about Rockingham Speedway, it is a track that has got such a rich history behind it, and it is definitely far from the easiest of tracks. It is by far one of the fastest 1 mile long tracks you can find in the world. It is, of course, bumpy. It's got a little track surface. It's got some high banks, though, and a lot of hot track temperatures out there today as well, which means we could be in for a thrilling race. And wouldn't surprise me if we saw that yellow flag flying a few times over the course of the night.
It'll be a hot and slick afternoon tonight at the Rock, and we take a look at our campaign and get another new kind of racetrack tonight at the Rock. We haven't seen really anything like this yet this year. Another unique racetrack in New Hampshire next week, and then it gets serious. Dega, as we mentioned, I think all year long after that race is getting to the point where we kind of have a better idea of where this championship's going. We head to a short track at Lucas Oil Raceway, and then the finale under the lights in the entertainment capital of the world in Las Vegas in January to crown our champ. But I mentioned Andrew Freenosh is still on top of the board, and again, that has remained the same. He has been so awfully consistent and holds a 23-point advantage over Michael Lariah. Now, Lariah has closed that gap in a little bit recently. We've seen 5 different race winners, Nolan, in the 5 races this year. There was a question if Liam Sheen was going to make it tonight, and he's minus 32 off of the championship lead in 3rd. He is switching away from his VR headset to monitors. We'll see if that affects him. He says that it's really been affecting his depth perception today as he's been working on that. But Silver, Cato, Bowie, they're all close, and all they need is one slip up from Freenosh at the top, and we got a party on our hands.
I think that is going to be really the big ticket question at the moment. Can Andrew Freenosh maintain that consistency throughout the rest of this Winter Series season? Everyone below Ross Cato still within a mathematical chance of being able to clinch that title, but they would need for Freenosh to score 0 points if they were to pull themselves within a 10-point gap. But with only about 30 or so cars here tonight, that is almost certain not to happen, especially with Freenosh topping the boards in not just qualifying, but also pretty high up there in practice, 4th place in the practice session as well, just before this race got started. So you got yourself Andrew Freenosh, who's got that significant points lead, 23 points. But of course, one slip up, you mentioned it perfectly, and he'll be tumbling back well within reach of Michael Lariah.
Talking about some of the championship battles closing in, one of them that is spreading out is the team championship standings. Keep It Real Esports continues to hold ground against Flat Out Motorsports. They lead the team championship by 51 points coming into this evening. Extreme Performance Motorsports, though, falls way off with a awful showing at Chicagoland, and they are now well out of contention for the championship, and maybe at a touch for second. So we'll see if Flat Out can find a little bit extra, or if KRR will be looking for their first ever team sanctioned championship here in the RealSimRacing Sim Speed Shop Winter Series. All of that brings us, of course, to tonight's race at Rockingham. Some call it just the Rock. It's among Stock Car's most historic racetracks, opened back in October of 1965. This racetrack hosted 2 NASCAR weekends annually up until 2004, when it was dropped off the schedule of NASCAR's Premier Series. However, Nolan, it looks like there may be some life still left in this old track. Same with North Wilkesboro just down the road. So I say it's one of the older tracks in NASCAR history, certainly one of the older scans on the iRacing service, but maybe a track with some renewed life still in the real world.
And it's not to say that, this track has been completely abandoned. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, there were even a few music festivals that were still held at these facilities while there weren't any motor races taking place over the course of the 2000s. So, it's good to see that this track does still have some life in it. And I think this would be one of those tracks that everybody would love to see back on the schedule. Of course, it does need a little bit of work. It's been a bit overgrown recently, what with being put out of action essentially for the better part of almost 2 decades now. But who knows, maybe this track will be able to get some life in it, and who knows, potentially further down the line, get some cars racing on here again. I think that is something that everybody would be looking forward to.
Certainly is, and with qualifying drawing to a close, good news for the drivers in the field tonight. The magic number is 30, therefore no drivers will be sent home in knockout qualifying. I mentioned that it's going to be a hot and slick afternoon, Nolan, and again, unlike in the RSR Cup Series, where those races are actually scheduled in the virtual world to take place on their same date in the annual calendar, right? So a race in February is going to be a little bit cooler than a race in July. All of these Winter Series races, since it doesn't follow really the NASCAR Xfinity Series schedule, all fall on the iRacing default day, and that's in May. So it is a hot and slick afternoon here in the Tar Heel State. Track temp only 75 degrees, but our atmosphere temp, I should say 75, but track temp is already at 121, and when you combine that with this rough and abrasive beat-up surface, you talk about the possibility of yellows. I think drivers are going to struggle a lot on their own to hang on to these race cars tonight.
I tell you what, I wish it was 75 degrees where I was at the moment. It's 20 outside. You freeze your hands as soon as you step outside. So I can guarantee you that it's definitely better sitting at 75 for these guys out on the track. But 123, you mentioned it perfectly, absolutely boiling track temperatures down there, which could mean we're going to see a lot of slipping and sliding. Saw that all through practice, all through qualifying. Turns 2 and 4, watch them closely, especially as we get close to a pit window. It could prove for some spicy action.
Go trackside and take a look at your Sim Speed Shop starting grid, and Andrew Friedrich is on pole position with a 24.543. He'll bring us to the green flag alongside Brandon Six, Michael Laraya, Liam Sheen, Anthony DeBarro, and Sam Nieto, your first 3 rows.
Row number 4 will hold 1 Kevin King with Nick Cohen beside him in the 8th position. Dylan Parker and Cody Harris round out the top 10 with Kyle Kamer and Brandon Bowie on row number 6.
Continue on down through some big names in the midfield, including the likes of Bradley Burke, Grant Davis, and Sean Casto. Also, Dave Matson making his debut. He'll start at 18th.
Nick Silver is 19th with Wymaster, and 20th. Alexander Russell going to be making a start in 21st place, while the Mara brothers, Nicholas Mara, starting 22nd. It's Cato and Major, 23rd and 24th.
At past halfway home, you got the likes of Harry Grindle, another driver making their debut tonight, Chambliss, Morano, Schmidt, and Edwards. A look at your 30-car starting grid here this afternoon from The Rock. Lights already out on top of the pace car as we get set to go racing tonight for 150 laps around this 1.017 mile speedway. That means we'll be on the clock for about 165 miles and change here this afternoon. 5 races down, 5 races to go as we race off into the second half of this Winter Series campaign. We're happy you're spending your Monday night with us, as always, here on RaceSpotTV. Pace car down and in. Andrew Friedosh, the championship leaders in control, as we say, let's go racing at the Rock. Quick first lap of the books, and Friedosh is able to hang on. DeBarro with some challenge behind. He sits at 4th at the moment. He gets around Liam Sheen, who drops back in the 92 outside as Nieto challenges to his inside.
So first, second, third, and fourth broken away clear. Nieto still challenging for 5th. Up the inside of Liam Sheen, and he'll take that spot. Sheen already thinking about the crossover, but couldn't get the hammer down. Out of turn 4, he'll have to settle for 6th place for the time being. Already single file just about everywhere you look throughout the field. A lot of drivers not wanting to take a lot of risks early on at Rockingham.
You may assume that, again, drivers are going to want to fight, be aggressive early in this race, but I talk about how challenging I think this racetrack's going to be on an individual car-to-car basis, driver versus track, and that's why you see some drivers trying to get away early. However, mid-pack can't do that. That's Bradley Burks, the 95 machine on the right-hand side of your screen. He is underneath the number 24 up the road of Grant Davis. Got a couple of the cars in the mix. Chris Rabel's there, Nick Silver's there, and some others. So in the mid-pack, you can't find the spacing that the cars up front have. Is looking to the inside there and challenging is Rabel. Burke moves up to give him the space. It's a battle for 15th that Burke is able to defend. Now 4 laps in, all led by pole sitter Friedosh.
You look at how wide this track is, and it looks like it could be 3-4 lanes wide, but there really only is one optimal line that you can run. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of these little moves being made and little looks being taken up the inside to split these drivers into these corners. I don't think they're trying to necessarily go for positions here, so much as they're trying to just keep out of running into the back of these drivers. Of course, it's a very bumpy track surface. There's a pretty nasty bump entering turn 1 that you saw Brandon Six get a little bit out of shape that last time by. Same story with DeBarro and Sam Nieto just behind him. And it's those little bumps that can unsettle you, especially if you've missed your braking points. So a lot of these guys just wanted to make sure they take it easy so they can keep that front end clean.
It's going to be something we're watching all night long as you fight this racetrack. It's easy to overwork these cars as you go on board with Brandon Six. He is -1 in this race. Started second, he's down in 3rd, and is watching Larai and the company pull away and is seeing a challenge of Anthony DeBarro from behind. DeBarro started in 5th. He's up 1 after making a pass on Liam Sheen early. Sheen's lost another spot. He's down to 6th, and now DeBarro wants some more. Challenging to the inside of 6. Here he goes down to the inside on the front stretch. Both drivers going to push up the hill in turn 1, and it's not all the way a tri-oval, Nolan. It's nowhere near as obvious as a modern day intermediate of Vegas and Atlanta, but there is a slight curve to that front stretch and opens up that inside that DeBarro takes advantage of to gain the position.
Bit of a jagged tri-oval at that, and honestly, the way when you look at it from the air, it honestly almost resembles that of a Charlotte Motor Speedway. You almost got yourself 2 little dog legs. The one just after start finish is definitely a lot more pronounced than the one before, but it almost seems to straighten on out. And I think that adds the difficulty of the track, trying to find that one line that takes that arc around that you might want to follow if it was a track, say Chicagoland Motor Speedway. You have to kind of make it yourself. Again, like Texas, Atlanta, Charlotte, and so on. The list goes on and on. You have to try to find those little arcs, and you've seen it as well all day long with even in these B-class cars. I mean, a lot of these drivers on those traditional mile and a halves, they might try to open up the outside line, try to use that as a defensive line against some of these drivers. That is not working though for a lot of these guys so far today. I mean, you look at Bradley Burke and Sean Castle. I mean, Castle pushes so wide up and out of the groove. You see how much it costs him, can't get the momentum back down the front straightaway because Burke's already able to cover him off.
Burke has been awfully busy tonight in the Get Wet Chevrolet, that 95. Every time we look at him, he's in a fight. He's able to shake off Casto for 13th for the time being. He is net gain of nothing, exactly where he started in 13th for now. But we'll see as these challenges roll on through. And he's been able to get around Casto. There's Rabel behind. Rabel's white and black Ford Mustang trying to get underneath the kind of gold tan-ish 52 of Casto. There's more side-by-side behind them. You see Silver's there. Harry Grindle's number 70 Toyota, again, making his first start of the season here this afternoon after being invited over from the wait list. He's right in the mix, and actually Grindle, the biggest mover in the field right now, at +9, right here, fighting against some of the bigger names in the series.
Nick Silver in that Toyota Supra at the moment, still working the inside lane of Sean Casto. Casto's continuing to slip further and further backwards. That outside line not able to get a good run. You look on board Harry Grindle as he got out of shape out of turn 2. That puts him under fire from Grant Davis, who tries to have a look around the outside line. That could backfire though on the Hasib Designs Camaro. Looks like he'll try to pull it off though. Grindle struggling significantly from the inside line. One of us already starting to smoke that rub up on the inside line. Of course, the track temperatures still standing at 125 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a 2-degree increase in just 14 laps. That is a rapid rate that this track is heating up at. That can't be good news for those tires for these guys that want to hang on to that inside groove.
The good thing is race cars are built better than commuter cars, Nolan, because I know, driving around in Vegas, when it's 110 degrees something, that asphalt's hot, my transmission gets warm real quick. So good thing the race cars are built better than a commuter car, and you can see Casto wanting to get away from all of this. And we saw the big slide for Grindle, but we haven't seen too many drivers way out of control. So I think well-disciplined, given the circumstances for these drivers. Now 15 laps in, you're not missing anything up front. Friedrich is still your race leader, being chased down by Lariah. You got Winemaster and company, but Otzi Major, Nick Mara, some of the other drivers just behind this group with the Grindle and Davis and Casto. This is all some 7 seconds off of the race lead, and is probably the most exciting pack on the track right now.
F52 car doing a good job on hanging on around the outside line. Grant Davis is going to hang tough with it. He'll tuck in line now in behind that number 52 Camaro. Maybe try to have another go for that 16th position. I am noticing, though, that Sean Casto is doing a very wise thing. He's taking a wider entry, avoid the bump on the inside line, and then dime it off the corner, right? Exit or enter high, exit as low as you can. That's what he's trying to do. It's what he's continuing to do. Gets the momentum off of these corners, and it prevents Grant Davis from being able to properly get a charge himself. Here comes Grindle now with the charge on the 24 up the inside into turn number 1. And will this be another spot gain for Harry Grindle? Not sure if it will, but I think Grant Davis might have some work to do for the outside line. Jared Wymas is looking for it as well. Grindle gets clear, and that 48 car is looking to move up further inside the top 20.
He is on the move. Exactly what we expect to see at a Jaron Winemaster is picking away as we go. Grindle gets a spot in that battle, so he's all the way up now, still hanging on to 17th position. But look at Davis. I mean, all the way up, missed that corner. It's very easy to do that with all of the braking that you need to get here at the Rock. And as they race down Thunder Valley and go back it off down the back straightaway into turn number 3, the position goes to Winemaster. We're now on the bottom, but Otzi Major still sporting the winter-themed Sprite Cranberry Chevrolet Camaro. His 82 car gets on through and makes a pass. Nick Mara now trying to team up, and look at all the cars behind this, Nolan. You got Davis, Russell, Cato, Mara, Schmidt. I mean, if that 24 Mission Davis can't find a spot in line soon, he's in trouble, and Nick Mara doing the very best to keep the fight going. Davis gets clear, so now Mara fighting against the 12 car up top of Ross Cato.
Oh, nearly puts Cato into the wall that time by out of turn number 4, William Schmidt. You see Justin behind that number 79 Camaro looking to charge through as well. Now McNamara under fire from both ends. Cato up top. He's got Schmidt looking for the bottom, but going to fend one off, and with that, he'll take the other as well. William Schmidt looks up the inside of Ross Cato at the moment, so now Cato starting to drop back, and that's a bit of a common sight to see when you're in the thick train cars like this. We've seen this at some tracks like Bristol or like Martinsville. You get stuck on the top side, and you often get freight train, and that is definitely bringing true to what we hear in Rockingham. Usually if you see a guy up on the top side, they're liable to drop at least 2 or 3 spots before they can find another space in.
A good look at Ross at the bottom right corner of your screen, sporting his RSR hoodie and running right now in the number 25 spot. That's a -2, as you can see from where he started this race, so trying to stay in the mix in this battle. Cato, another one of those drivers who could have some really good runs. And one point that we talked about, Nolan, when we were at Chicago last week was the fact that, it's not really a track maybe that a ton of people have driven recently, right? I mean, it's no longer on the official NASCAR schedules, but it does stay on the iRacing official schedules, right, occasionally. So people have been there every now and then. You look even earlier in the season, a place like in Iowa, another track that, doesn't even make it on the Xfinity calendar these days anymore, but is still on the iRacing schedule. So they were kind of semi-familiar tracks, right? I would be surprised if, as we see Sheen struggle off the corner and DeBarro gain the advantage there, I'd be shocked if any of these drivers had driven an Xfinity car here at Rockingham in the last year before they looked at this calendar, right? I mean, there's a lot of learning curve going on because this just isn't a track that gets as much love.
It is a bit of a popular track in the D-Class series. Of course, the ARCA series. It's a bit of an interesting one of that, isn't it? I mean, that's a track you see often on schedules for more lower-tier series, but certainly not in something as high as maybe C or B-Class series. You see it on the occasion, but you're not even guaranteed to get it on there at least once every season. So I think that could be why we're seeing a couple of these drivers looking to take it a bit more steady. But you can also see a lot of these guys are already pretty dang confident around this track. If they're not too major, checks up Brian Chambliss as he loses the spot to Ross Cato around the outside line. So some drivers clearly more confident than others, but not too major. I think might be one of those guys starting to struggle a little bit on the brakes. And we are getting close to lap 30, 1/5 of the way through this race. And I think now I have to start to wonder, how are the tires faring? Of course, it's very different on when you're 30 laps in compared to just about 5 laps in. How the tires will be doing, especially on a track as hot as this. It's only continued to heat up since then, as you see Nate Cohen push way up the track, trying to keep Brandon Bowie at bay in the battle for 8th.
Yeah, haven't talked much about these two tonight, but Cohen is doing a good job of driving defensively on the outside. And if you get pushed up top, you're not gaining a lot by pinching the car down on the bottom, right? Oftentimes we'll see if somebody gets into a lane they don't want to be in, they'll pinch, whether it's pinching up or pinching down, trying to get as close to that preferred line as you could be. That just does not work for a car on the outside here at the Rock. Once Cohen knows that he's up top, he's going to go all the way to the outside, and he'll let Bowie work the bottom because he's trying to wind that thing up and rip it off of the corner to clear himself once more. And, Sheen's been working real hard. He's kind of in an orange sandwich right here, right? There's orange cars in front and behind him. DeBarro's got the spot. Kevin King wants another one. Now, Kevin King was the talk of the town in Joliet, Illinois last week at Olin. Of course, one of the more veteran drivers on the iRacing service, a multi-time eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series winner, made his RSR Oval debut last week. Wasn't that impressive in qualifying. It was 14th, drove himself to a race win on long run pace, and he looks good tonight, but he got held up there by DeBarro, and that allows Liam Sheen to get back up to P5 for the time being.
Look at Dylan Parker ripping the outside line right by the wall, trying to set up a run on Brandon Bowie. Could potentially do it in the turn 1 if he continue to carry that momentum around. Now DeBarro side by side with Kevin King up the road. This is starting to get a bit hairy deeper in the top 10 battles here. You see DeBarro have to scramble to the inside line as Cohen clears around the top side, and Parker's going to pick one up on Brandon Bowie. So these outside lines really working with Parker. Oh, too aggressive that time, though. Gets into the outside wall, and he'll potentially lose another spot to DeBarro. And Brandon Bowie, though, not able to mount the charge back this time around, but Parker started to make great use of that top line there. I didn't think I'd be seeing that until a little bit deeper in these runs.
It's very, very easy, as I mentioned, to overstep that. And, if you overshoot the corner a little bit, it's not like you're only missing your preferred lane. I mean, he was trying to aim for a higher lane anyways, but I've seen it several times where drivers, try to enter the bottom, and even though they only overshot it a little bit, they're going to go all the way to the outside. I mean, that's how tricky it is. Oh, and the 34 car of Bowie, he hangs on. Bowie apologized over the radio. Nolan got into the back there of the 27 car in front of him, Anthony DeBarro, and then Michael Johnson slid into him, and it was a great recovery by Bowie, but it's going to cost him several positions.
by all three drivers. Michael Johnson shot sideways on his own, just trying to avoid that. Taking a look at the replay. There's it for the bar, and look, Johnson already sideways before the hit. That was some phenomenal driving from all three to keep those cars pointed in the right direction, but mentioned how this could potentially be hurting Brandon Bowie, and he's now dropped well outside of the top 10, down to as below as 17th place potentially here. Definitely going to be hurting Bowie big time. Currently running P16 on the racetrack. It's a far cry from the 9th place he was battling for just a lap ago.
And again, always better than being on the hook, but certainly would have appreciated avoiding that incident entirely. Just to update you as well on some of the drivers that have had some issues tonight. Tom Morano just went to the garage, so his night's going to be done. Chris Edwards is on to pit road, so he's 28th. Cody Harris, though, disconnected from the session as we see Parker challenging to the inside at a battle for 7th with Nick Cohan here. But Cody Harris lost 4 laps while he reconnected to the server, so he's 29th and 4 laps down. Should get at least 2 spots back past the Edwards and Morano in just a little bit, and will gain more positions and other cars wreck out. And then Alexander Russell has gone to the garage. So 4 drivers with some issues to kick off this race as Nick Cohan will see Dylan Parker clear him and take sole possession of the number 7 spot. 37 laps in to this sim speed shop, but 150. So far, so good.
And now you can see that 21 car looking to continue to put some pressure on these guys further up the road. Nick Cohen trying to see if he can run down Dylan Parker just ahead of him and start battling for that 7th position. Don't forget Kevin King running in 5th place, trying to see if he can potentially hold on to a top 5 spot. Deeper down in the field, you're looking at the battle for 14th at the moment. Sean Casto moving up the hill, trying to keep Chris Rabel at bay, also trying to set up a charge on one Michael Johnson just in front of him, the number 39 MRN Camaro, and he's looking at the inside of Kyle Kamer making a move, and here comes Sean Casto 3 wide round the outside line, and he's gonna get 1 up on Kamer, might get 2 here on Michael Johnson.
Hey, that was a nice move initially by Michael Johnson, but what a drive by Sean Casto, who on the outside passes both of them and make it a twofer for Sean Casto, and the 52 machine punches his way up to 12th. What an advantage move there by Casto, taking advantage of the opportunity he saw. Now he sets his sights up the road to Nick Silver. Let's take a second look. Aggressive enough move by Johnson on the bottom, but look at Casto all the way to the outside. I think Kamer bails a little bit on that one. Nolan probably could have fought back a little bit harder. Figured it wasn't worth it, so that was 1 spot for Sean, and they got the second pass done in 1 and 2. So very aggressive and impressive stuff by Casto. Now diamonding the corner to try to get underneath Silver as we see round 2 of the battle between the 52 and the 4. Casto this time winning out over Silver.
You see Bradley Burke in the mix of things as well in his Get Wet Chevrolet. I have to wonder if something went wrong for Burke last time by out of 2, because all of a sudden he went from 10th place and dropped all the way down to 14th, and he's continuing to drop. You see him now lose a spot out to Chris Rabel around the outside line, potentially down on power for Bradley Burke. These cars got to be running hot, right? 124 degrees still out there on the track, and he has now gone from 10th to 16th in just 2 laps on the inside line. So that car struggled a little bit as we see him getting off these corners on the power.
Just listened in to some of the throttle work there by Bradley Burke and how long he's off the gas into 3, and we'll hear it again in 1. You hear how cautious he has to be, Nolan, to get back to the gas, right? I mean, we don't see that as much, right? I mean, the modern day Cup car is not a 900 horsepower low downforce anymore, right? Even though, even at the short tracks, at the 700 package, you just, sometimes when you get into the gas, I'm not going to say you plant it back into the throttle, right? But you can kind of steadily put the right foot down and roll into it. There, he was burping it. It was very timid. The race car does not want to rotate at this racetrack.
I have to wonder, maybe he pushed it a bit too hard early on and his tires have just fallen off that much. I mean, it's a very easy thing to do. This is a very abrasive racetrack. It's a very old surface. It's a bumpy surface. It just eats tires for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And it might have just had a bit of Bradley Burke's rubber for dessert.
But you can see the racetrack getting rubbered in. Track temp was 125 last time we checked in. It's still steady there, so maybe we've plateaued as far as how much heat is going to end up in this racetrack, and maybe an opportunity now to start to talk shop with strategy. The 150 number lap total makes it pretty easy, Nolan. If you're going for a two-stopper, you're pitting at 50. If you're going for a one-stopper, you're pitting at 75, or I would think, based on the fact that I haven't really seen anybody besides Chris Edwards way back in traffic pit that were looking to go for one-stopper at halfway. Even if the number was 50, you'd tend to see some drivers coming in a bit earlier, so we'll keep an eye on that to see how this strategy plays out.
I think one thing these drivers are always going to be considering, is how much time am I going to lose with that second stop? And at this track, if you can push it to 75, I would honestly say go for it. You're not going to be gaining a whole lot otherwise. I mean, at a track this short where the lap times are less than 30 seconds, you know for a fact that you are going to be losing at least one lap in the pit stops when you come on down. So unless you are confident, contact out of 4, Kamer gets shoved down the racetrack by Nick Silver. That could have been caution number 1.
And Silver immediately apologizing for that one. It wasn't a big moment, but the 4 kind of tracked down the hill just enough to cut off Kyle Kamer. Kamer is very, very fortunate that didn't punt him into the inside wall. So many times we've seen contact like that absolutely send the car on the receiving end, and Kamer is very fortunate that it wasn't worse than that. Is up the road, Dylan DeParker's number 3 down to the inside of Kevin King. Talk about how good King was last week at Chicago on the long run, but he was reeled in by Parker here. The 3 car is the aggressor in the battle for 5th. Give it to him. Off and into turn 1.
And all of this, we were just wanting to discuss the strategy game for a little bit, right? And I can see Nick Cohen just came down to pit road this last time by. So Cohen is going to be thinking that he could potentially go for the 2-stop strategy. And I was just wanting to mention before we had that contact with Kamer on the front straightaway, Evan, that unless you know you can make up all of that lost time on the track with the extra fresh rubber, I don't think a 2-stop strategy would be too worth it. But Nick Cohen, he either thinks that he can go the distance, or he thinks that everybody else is going to be on a 2-stop strategy with him.
Bold call. One of the first drivers from up front to make that decision, and now Anthony DeBarro is also down to pit road for service. Will we see drivers now in flux come down to the pit lane for a 2-stop strategy? We've talked so much, Nolan, tonight about the hot racetrack, the aggressive, temperatures, the effect that's going to have on tires. It's a worn surface. It's bumpy. It's rough, right? We're talking all about how bad these tires are going to be. They're only looking at about 1.5 seconds of fall off, best laps at the start of the run to now. Now, that's not to say that 1.5 seconds is nothing, but, at other tracks we see 3. So for all those factors, I think the fact that the tires aren't absolutely getting cheese grated would give me a little bit more confidence in the 1-stop strategy, being able to go that far on tires, let alone, once the fuel question is sorted out, which I think drivers are going to be fine for. But it looks like this race may have split strategy. And if you can have a race where half the drivers are on one call, half the drivers are on the other, and green flag race that allows it to play itself out, I think there's very few things better than that. So really excited to see how the strategy pays out for the likes of Nick Cohen and Anthony DeBarro, who are down pit road already, when it looks like the majority of the cars are going to stay with the 1-stop call. At least for now, we'll see if that changes between the next 20 laps or so.
Watching the number 4 car at the moment coming on down into turns 3 and 4. Nick Silver getting passed up by Nick Cohen and going around the outside line. That is the difference from fresh tires on old tires at the moment as Nick Cohen starts to pick his way back through the field. Oh, that's close, and he gets into the back of Brandon Bowie and puts himself on the outside wall. Immediately switches back to the low side. Cohen gets through. It's a risky business being out there on the fresher tires when you have everybody else behind you on the old rubber, because they're not obligated to let you through by any stretch of the means.
Yeah, I don't think that the 21 machine there of Nick Cohan was expected Brandon Bowie to go high, right? Bowie was on his own. Cohan's quicker, tried to pass somebody outside. That's where Bowie went. And it really spooked him. And I think that Nick Cohan is very fortunate that wasn't an incident. Not to get the orange cars confused, there's a different orange car that you're looking at now of Anthony DeBarros, number 27 Toyota. His DeBarros Sliders Toyota Supra is one lap down right now. That's the other concern about being on the early end of a short pit strategy is you're going to fall a lap down. And you're going to be quicker. It's going to be easy enough for you to pass cars on pace, but I mean, this is kind of a tricky situation right here. The 27, hot on the scene, can't go anywhere. Right, stuck behind the 4, trying to look to the inside, can't pass there. William Schmidt's there. To the outside is Bowie, and why not? Just part the seas. Those cars, Nolan, were fighting for position, and the 27 said, I don't really care, and just drove through the middle of all of them. That's kind of what you need to do, because you can't afford to give up too much time if you're kind of the odd man out strategy-wise. This is where you need to make up your time, and DeBarro, I think, did a good job there of being aggressive, but not overly stupid.
And that's part of the issue when it comes to these smaller tracks and these two-stop strategies and finding yourself on the short end of the stick of a strategy like that. It's very hard to actually find yourself in some clean air. I mean, you look at some of the 1.5 miles or even some of the 2-mile tracks, and you'll be able to find yourself, at least a couple of laps where you'll be able to run in some clean air. It's not the case, though, at tracks like Dover or Rockingham. Tracks like these that are only 1 mile long. It's a lot harder to find that clean air when everybody's so spread out as they are right now, with the field spread well over the course of the entire racetrack at the moment. And I think all of that combined could give it with a bit of an interesting run throughout the course of this race. Winemaster noticing dropping down the timing order, potentially making a run to pit road as you see Brandon Bowie and Grant Davis trying to work together. And our Winemaster is going to be hitting pit road.
So another driver to trickle on in. Kind of an interesting spot because, again, the math would be 2-stopper. You want to do 50-lap stints. 1-stopper, you want to do 75-lap stints. Kind of pin it at lap 60 seems like a strange number, but to each its own. Some drivers may want to have a little bit of reserve in the end. Just because the numbers sound easy, it also doesn't mean that you necessarily need to make your 2-stop strategy all even runs, right? I mean, you could pit at 60, you could go to lap, 120 and do a 30-lap sprint to the end, right? With less fuel, lighter car, less time in the pits. I mean, let's not, say that the only 2-stop strategy is the 50 to 50, but that's just kind of a benchmark to use because drivers tend to want to even out the tire wear. But that's also a potential explanation for some drivers pitting a little bit later is the fact that they may want to go a little bit less on the fuel, save some time on the pit lane later in this race. Watching the battle for 10th position, Chris Rabel under fire from Bradley Burke. These drivers have been busy bees this afternoon and a lot of fights every time we check in with them. They're about 5 seconds off the battle between Casto and Johnson ahead of them, so they're kind of all on their own right now, duking it out. Some 20 total seconds off of the race leader. Burke now to the inside in turn 3.
Gonna be honest, I didn't expect Bradley Burke to be able to fight his way up here again. I mean, we were talking about 20 laps or so ago when he fell those 6 spots in just 2 laps from 10th all the way down to 16th. He has since clawed his way back, though, and been able to retake that 10th place now. I do think it's kind of helped somewhat that a few of those drivers have come down to pit road since then, but hey, position is position nonetheless, and he might be able to hold on to that 10th place if he gets a lucky caution in the next little while here. Here is Dylan Parker, Brandon Six, and Michael Araya. Battle for the final podium position underway with Nick Cohen still in fresh tires going 3 wide up the bottom to try to cut his way through.
And he wasn't able to clear, and Parker going to squeeze up to give room to Cohan on the bottom, and it pinches Laraya out of road. So Parker defends 3rd. Brandon 6 goes to 4th. Laraya slides down to 5th. How does that all-chrome number 44 Sim Speed Shop Chevrolet react? Also now getting to the point where some drivers on the one-stop strategy may be talking about headed to the pit lane shortly, so that is something else to watch as well, as Laraya is going to try to wind that one up on the outside of the racetrack and catch on up, but it seems like those positions lost for the moment and Lariah stays at 5th. I mentioned it in passing earlier in the broadcast, Nolan, but did want to kind of circle back and highlight that we have seen quite the good racing so far in this winter series. I talked about how so many different racetracks have been utilized. 5 races in, we haven't had a single repeat type of racetrack. We also haven't seen a repeat winner yet. Championship leader Andrew Freenosh won that season opener in Daytona. Michael Lariah won in Fontana. Malik Ray took home a checkered flag in Iowa. Matt Danson won in his one and only race at Mid-Ohio on the road course. And then, of course, Kevin King making his first RSR Oval start, getting his first RSR sanctioned win last week at Chicago. So a lot for Freenosh to think about here tonight, is looking to become the first repeat winner, and honestly has been in a league of his own for much of this afternoon. There was a point 30 to 40 laps in where Sam Nietta was pretty close to his bumper. Michael Lariah, same thing. 44 was actually all over him at one point, but Freenosh, as you can see by monitoring those intervals on the left-hand side of your screen, comfortably 4 seconds and change out in the race lead.
It wasn't always like that. I mean, for the first 20 laps or so, he was within about 2-3 tenths or so of second place runner Sam Nietta, but that has not been the case so far throughout the course as this green flag run has played out more and more. I mean, Freenosh, we know this before. We've seen this time and time again. He is definitely a driver that loves the long run. He has got the long run pace. He usually likes to save his tires early on, and then he is phenomenal at being able to just punch through and definitely be fast where it counts, and that is later in these runs, and he's looking to potentially continue to hold on to the lead all the way up through the halfway point of this race, coming up in just about 4 laps time.
Almost halfway home, and then we'll see the big swing of pit stops kick off. The total number of cars who pitted in the first half of the race on scheduled stops, by my count, I only see 5 or 6 total. So that is not a lot of drivers on the 2-stop call. Typically, it's the call that has more drivers, tends to be the right one. You don't often see somebody, kind of, get the whole field, right, and then go for a different strategy that nobody else thought of. So I think those 6 drivers certainly at a disadvantage. But that is all TBD. Kevin King, we talk about being good on the long runs. He's still defending ahead of this battle here, which will help him out. Sheen underneath Lariah. How about some more 3 wide? Casto again, this time through the middle. And will he get 2 spots in a lap again? Yes, he does. That is the second time tonight that Sean Casto has gone 3 wide and passed both cars for position. And after starting in 16th, Casto is now P6.
Definitely one of those drivers that is on the move, not wanting to sit still. And again, Castle might be like Freenosh, having that long run pace. Sometimes, drivers aren't so good on a hot lap pace, getting that one good flying lap in, but they can be phenomenal at being able to dial in so many fast laps consistently. You look up to Andrew Freenosh as we start to approach halfway. He is getting set to potentially put himself under fire and head on down to pit road, and he's got 4.2 seconds still between himself and Sam Nietta. On the left side, you've just seen Chris Rabel down to pit road, and I can see Brandon Six also in this time by. Halfway is coming up, and now we can see more and more drivers that are on the 1-stop going to be coming on down in very short order here. Freenosh slow off of 4. Thought he might come down as well. He decides to just give it up to Manazzi Major, who came down about 5 laps ago.
So 6 is down pit road, Rabel down pit road, and radio chatter picking up. We are halfway home in the Sim Speed Shop 150. We'll hold, though, on our midway race break until we get through the cycle, because that scoring pylon on the left-hand side of your screen going to look like some Christmas lights here in a moment with all of the positions changing. Chambliss nearly dumped it, but he is on pit road. Burke is also down for service. It's a tricky pit lane entry here as well that can sneak up on you. You got to slow all the way down to 40 miles an hour.
And that's coming off of such a fast corner as well, and such a high bank as well. It's a sharp transition. You have to make sure it doesn't unsettle you when you're coming down to pit road. Saw in practice a lot of drivers overshooting pit lane, maybe going into the barrels just at the start of the pit wall. So far, that has been lucky enough. We've been lucky enough not to have that happen tonight, but who knows? It's only going to take that one mistake. And here at Rockingham, one guy that hits those barrels wrong, that can easily clog up pit entry, which obviously that just makes it a world of hurt for everybody else trying to pit in behind them.
Yeah, pit road also so difficult here because at some of those bigger, smoother, wider intermediate tracks, you can just hold the bottom lane and tell the cars behind you, hey, I'm pitting, and all they really need to know is, you know, move up a lane or so and you're going to have room. It's much trickier to do that here at Rockingham. You're going to want to be middle of the racetrack before you point the nose down to get to pit road, just because it's so tight through that kind of 2/3 mark of the corner, and I think that is what makes it very, very treacherous. Freenosh still in control, though, showing no signs of wavering yet. Less than a dozen cars still yet to pit. Davison, Schmidt in, and a little bit of a shout out to William Schmidt, who before the pit stop was plus 20 positions. He quietly has been picking his way through the middle of the field and was, at that time, the biggest mover in the field. Also, race leader Andrew Freenosh on the radio says he'll be pitting this time. He looks to execute this one clean.
Off of turn 4 clean, just got to lock it up for pit road, and he's going to get that slowed down nice and smooth. San Diego stays out one more. He will lead his first lap of the race this time by, but I'd imagine being looking to come on down pit road this time by for Dan as well. Just wanted to get that extra lap led for himself, and now they can focus on getting those 4 fresh Goodyears on.
And you can see he'll cycle out of the pit lane behind Dave Matson there, so he has to pause a little bit, but he gets into the number 1 pit stall. Clean entry, left-hand side of your screen for the 2 machine of Sam Nieto. Now, that's big because Nieto did officially lead a lap that time by, so Sam Nieto has secured himself a bonus point. Kevin King has done it as well. Kevin King, a limited schedule, though I don't think he's that worried about championship points, but Sam Nieto's a top 10 guy, so that could be a big bonus point for him. It's also worth noting that by Andrew Freenosh is leading the 79 first laps of this race, Nolan. That is more than half the lap, so he has locked up maximum bonus points, 1 for leading a lap, but an additional point for leading the most laps. So if Freenosh could win this race tonight, he could look for a max of 42, which is the most that any driver can score in a RealSimRacing Sim Speed Shop Winter Series race, and that would be a huge blow to Lariah, Sheen, Silver, Cato, and the rest of his championship competitors, who I mentioned earlier tonight were just needing a slip-up from him, just to crack the door open to have a chance. Kevin King will cycle down to the pit lane, and that will do it for service. Kamer still needs to come down pit road, but he's back in 4th position. But what this will do now will cycle Nick Cohan to the race lead. Remember, he was the very first car on the 2-stop strategy to pit. He pitted 35 laps ago. He'll probably pit again at another 15, Nolan, but he has cycled through to the race lead, and he's going to score some bonus points.
So he'll have about I would estimate probably close to a 15-second gap or so when he comes down to pit road for his second stop of the night for Nick Cohan. But I still have to wonder, can he claw that back? Because he will still have some fresher rubber, and that advantage will go all his way for the remaining laps or so of this race. I have to wonder, though, will he have enough time to run down Andrew Freenosh? Will he have the overall pace to be able to do it? Well, there's only one way to wait and see, and that's going to be to see how this race will play out. You got 8 cars now on the lead lap as a result of that 2-stop strategy, which, of course, kind of throws a bit of a wrench in the works in of itself. You'll look at Nick Cohen currently stuck in traffic. Dave Matson currently the one driver that is behind, with Liam Sheen tucked in the mix as well. Trying to get by Nicholas Morrow, who's down to 21st place as well, and Matson looks to go by around the outside.
Going to try to squeeze by up top. Talked about some of the rookie drivers moved in off the wait list, and Dave Matson is one of them, so good to see his 09 Navy Chevy Camaro in the field here tonight. And because no drivers were sent home from knockout qualifying tonight, that means even more drivers from the wait list will have an opportunity to race tomorrow or next week. But look at Liam Sheen there, stuck behind the 8-car at Kamer. I mentioned in passing that Kamer was the only car still yet to pit, and he pushed up. I talked about you need that higher arc to get to pit road, and he just pulled right up in front of Liam Sheen, and they made contact, and I think there's a little bit of left front damage on Sheen's 92.
It's not going to stop Sheen, though, from putting the 3 wide around the inside of the Mara brothers. He'll punch his ticket home and get past those 2 drivers. That'll secure him 7th place on the racetrack as well. That is a bit of a tight spot though to find yourself in, right? I mean, you got yourself a car that you know is going to come in and pit, but you have to get around him at some point, and obviously it still catches anybody off when you push up the racetrack like this, especially one that can be as tight as the Rock. So a tight situation. Could have been a lot worse, though. I think Liam Sheen can be glad that he only got away with that little bit of left front damage, if he even has that.
And now that the pit cycle of madness has calmed down for just a moment, let's take a look top to bottom at your Sim Speed Shop midway race break. It is spearheaded by a driver on a two-stop strategy. Nick Cohan is your leader, 10 seconds ahead of Andrew Freenosh, trying to win this race at an alternate strategy, getting lapped by some cars with fresh tires that are just trying to get themselves back onto the lead lap, and a contact there between Cohan and Burke. Behind him, second place runner is Andrew Freenosh, 10 seconds off, and the driver in the catbird seat this afternoon. Freenosh has led 79 laps so far. He's a half a second ahead of Brandon Six, hot on his heels in third. Sam Nieto runs at fourth at the moment, and a good battle with Sean Casto, who's fifth behind him. Then Dylan Parker runs in sixth, and Liam Sheen in seventh. Bradley Burke is in eighth position. Michael Araya scored in ninth, and Kevin King was the latest of the drivers in the top 15 to pit. He has the best of tires, and he's in 10th.
That is going a bit, put one Matthew Marr on 46 lap old tires, going to 47. He is going to be in 11th place for the time being. Michael Johnson sits 12th place for the moment. William Schmidt has been on the move. He has gained the most spots so far today, plus 16 on the day for the number 79 car. He sits 13th with Grant Davis in 14th. Brian Chambliss plus 12 for himself, down to 15th place. Brandon Bowie has had an up and down day so far, to say the very least. He sits 16th at the moment, minus 4 for where he started. Nick Silver is 17th with Ross Cato 18th. Dave Matson is 19th with Minazzi Major, down to 20th.
And continuing on through 21st position is Harry Grindle. He's along with the likes of Nick Barr in 22nd, also one lap down. A couple of the cars 2 laps down includes Kyle Kamer 23rd and Chris Rabel 24th. Cody Harris talked about his connection issues earlier. He is 25th, minus 5. Then the drivers with issues, Nolan, quietly through this pit cycle. Anthony DeBarro retired the car on his pit stop halfway, so the driver that was in the top 10 is out of this race in 26th. So is Jared Winemaster 27th, Chris Edwards 28th, Tom Morano 29th, and Alexander Russell in 30th. Those back 5 are in the garage. To look top to bottom at your Sim Speed Shop midway race break. Sim Speed Shop manufactures sim racing hardware that utilizes the best components available, as well as mixing in real-world components to their products to give you the most realistic racing experience possible. Customize your hardware and rig today by visiting simspeedshop.com for more information. Proud title sponsor of the 2022 RealSimRacing Sim Speed Shop Winter Series. On that note, closing in on lap number 100, which should be about the cue for Nick Cohan to come down to the pit lane, but I always like to make this joke, Nolan, so I'll make it again. Even if he had the MWR jet fuel, it wouldn't matter, because just on pace alone, Freenosh, who has no pit stops left to make, is only 3 seconds behind Nick Cohan. I don't see any way that Cohan's able to make a 42-second pit stop and then make up those 42 seconds on a guy like Freenosh. So I think our inferences from earlier proving to be true, that if this strategy is allowed to play out, that the one stop is the name of the game.
And this is what I was saying, right? I mean, I didn't think the two-stop strategy would be worth it. I mean, at a track like Rockingham, where traffic management can be oh so critical on a two-stop strategy like that, and especially, you know, with the fact that you're guaranteed to go 1, potentially even 2 laps down if you're slow enough on the pit road or have some sort of issues, I didn't think it was going to be worth the gamble, and sure enough, that has been the case, as it so often is throughout the course of the night. So you look up to DeBarro, who's in a bit of a fight about. Check that Nick Cohan is in a bit of a battle with Brian Chambliss, trying to keep Chambliss from unlapping himself around the inside line, and still waiting on Cohan to make that trip down to pit road. Grant Davis is going and trying to follow through as well. Not going to happen this time by those. So see Nick Cohan still struggling, and just in behind, there is Andrew Freenosh, who is closed in now about 0.3 of a second, making a 1/4 of a second. He's looking to charge up. potentially take that race lead away.
On the inside of the number 24 machine, not for position, Grant Davis, first driver, -1 lap. Would love a timely yellow here because he's in the lucky dog seat, but here is the challenge for the lead. Davis is going to try to unlap himself. He'll successfully do so, but Andrew Freinosh on the outside will end Nick Cohan's streak of 18 laps led in a row. And back to the race lead is your championship leader, Andrew Freinosh, who now can set himself up for a run with 49 laps to go and should be smooth sailing.
Still 3.9 seconds between Freinosh and Brandon 6. Second place swap hands throughout that pit cycle, right? So now you see that 6 is going to be the driver trying to make the charge. Nicholas Mara looks at the inside line, allows guys like Davis and Freinosh both through on the outside lane down the back straightaway. So I think Freinosh is going to have a pretty easy time taking a very secure win and being our first back-to-back winner here in this 2021/22 Winter Series season. And looks like he'll be looking set to potentially extend that points lead, especially coming out from tonight's race, especially with him, having gotten max bonus points already.
And Michael Lariah was looking for a big night tonight, entering second in the championship, only -23 points to Andrew Freinosh. Of course, that's down from the 28-point deficit that he had going into last week's race at Chicago. It was in that Chicago race where Michael Lariah didn't get the race win. That one eventually did go to Kevin King, but Lariah was, for all intents and purposes, the best car in that race, led the most laps to 75, and if he had won it, would have gotten an extra 5 points. I mean, that would have been huge, a difference of 23 versus 18. Freinosh finished 6th for his worst finish of the year, Nolan. Halfway through the year, worst finish, a P6. His other 4 finishes all inside of the top 5, including a win. But Lariah just has not had it tonight. Not just, that he hasn't had it figured out. He qualified pretty well in third, but you can see the -6 there on the lower third. I mean, he has just not had it on race pace. And listen, top 10 still far better than most of the drivers in the field, but just not the normal Michael Lariah that we're used to seeing.
You wonder if part of that might be the fact that we are running the cores in these B-class cars, right? They drive so differently compared to not just the Gen 6 cars, but even the new Gen 7 cars, especially with that new 670 package coming on in. You have to wonder if potentially just hasn't been able to get the car figured out underneath them. It could very well be a very distinct possibility, and you see Nick Cohen still losing ground to some of these drivers on the lead lap, dropped back to 5th place now, just lost out on 4th to one Dylan Parker, who's trying to charge down Sam Miedo, who's got a few cars just up the road from him. So Nick Cohen still looking to potentially stretch this stint out long, and I have to wonder why he has not come down for that second stoppage. He's not gaining anything by staying out here, is he?
I wonder if he's kind of realized that it's done, and what he's hoping for is a yellow flag to keep him on the lead lap, right? Because lap times here, 25 seconds and change. I mentioned 42-second pit stop. That's not the time in the box, right? The box time's 15 seconds, maybe a little bit slower, but your pit lane time. So that's all the way from the entry to the exit of the pit lane is anywhere from 41.6 if you're one of the faster guys to 44.0 if you're one of the slower guys in the field. You're going to lose a lap. Plus the slowdown time, speed up time. Now, yeah, you'll have the fresh tires, but I think the only thing that Cohan can do here is, realize, listen, if I pit, I'm going to be stuck a lap down for quite some time. Maybe he's just, kind of throwing a Hail Mary and going to run this thing empty on field, trying to catch a yellow to get a little bit of track position out of it. That's kind of the only thing that I can think of in terms of Cohan there.
I'd have to agree with you on that one. So Nick Cohen definitely going to be hoping for a yellow flag to kind of shake things up. But honestly, the way this has been playing out, I don't think you can expect one anytime soon. I mean, this has been a caution-free race so far, and it is looking like it is going to stay that way right through to the very end with only 40 laps to go this time by. Nicholas Mara making his final trip down to pit road for his final stop on the two-stint strategy. He might have been in the same boat, right? Trying to see if he could wait for a caution flag. That has not come, though. And at the moment, Nick Cohen, I'd imagine, has to be starting to get a little bit more concerned about whether how long he can make this one out on fuel before he has to come down pit road. Because you can't make it to the end with how early he hit the first time.
He's still sliding and sliding. He's down to 5th. Casto's going to get him shortly, but a couple of those battles going to go all the way down to the wire. As Nieto now looking underneath Brandon 6. Nieto has 7-lap fresher tires than that of Brandon 6. So does Dylan Parker a little bit further on down the road. So Brandon 6 could conceivably slip out of the podium positions in this race based on the fact that both of the cars behind him, Nieto and Parker, pitted 7 laps after he did. Here's a look off the back end of the 66 Chevrolet of 6. The bottom, though, with that curved front stretch, opens up. 6 is going to drive it way deep into the corner, but Nieto backs it up much better. He'll get the run off the corner, and as they race down Thunder Alley, the 2 car now with the advantage and gives second to Sam Nieto.
And here comes Dylan Parker. He'll look to try to follow suit and pick up third. Now, you mentioned that he could very easily lose the podium. Looks like he will be losing the podium as Dylan Parker winds one up outside line out of 4, and he'll charge that one through into turn 1.
Outside, different lane than how the 2 car did it. Same result. Parker is clear, and just like that, Brandon 6 has slid down to P4. That 7-lap difference on tires is giving a clear advantage to the drivers who waited a little bit longer to make their one and only pit stop. Close it in on the final 30 laps of this race from Rockingham. It has been all Andrew Friedosh. Let's take in the sights and sounds of the Rock with some RaceSpotTV fan immersion. Well, that's what it's like to race a NASCAR Xfinity Series car around Rockingham. And who knows, might be a sight at the NASCAR National Touring level again in the near future. This race only has 11 drivers, Nolan, left on the lead lap. We were talking earlier about a race like this, a race like a New Hampshire, where, the race could go green all the way, or it could have, 89 caution flags. You never know, right? I mean, we certainly had our fair share of scares. There's been drivers slipping and sliding all night, but I feel like once they got through that first green flag run, they kind of know what the cars are going to do on this run. They shouldn't be caught out by anything. Track temp has gone down a little bit in the second half of this race, and I would think that everybody wants maybe an opportunity for something to happen and get a restart in this, except for Freenosh, who's checked out up front, as we see the number 24 Mercedes Grant Davis making a pass on Brian Chambliss, that one for 13th.
It has been a remarkably clean race, and it has gone caution-free, though I will say not for lack of trying. I mean, look at Brandon Bowie, Michael Johnson, as well as Anthony Navarro's three-car slide through turns 1 and 2 earlier today, and not to mention as well, Alexander Russell crashed out from turn 2 down the back straightaway. That's why he retired very early on. That was all the way back on lap number 25, which I think it kind of goes to show just how there have been incidents in this race, so to speak, but nothing too severe enough that it has brought out that yellow flag. But there have been, as you mentioned, quite a few scares, and I will say there's still some time for some more. I mean, you saw when we got towards the end of that last green flag run just how slippy and slidey some of these cars were starting to get, stepping out from underneath drivers, and it's given us quite a few scares coming up towards that pit window. Of course, you know the aggression is going to ramp up as we get close to the end of this race as well. And one of that might just be enough to make some of it boil over.
An on-board look with Harry Grindle in the number 18 position. A good showing in his RSR debut, +8 as he rides now in the number 18 spot. As mentioned, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, about 8 drivers, I think, my count, 1 lap down, and then another 4, 2 laps down. But again, there are 5 drivers to the garage, which has taken out some competitive cars, the likes of DeBarro. Other drivers really never got their feet underneath them, with the likes of Russell, who had a spin back on lap 25, and even Cody Harris, who's still active and has passed all of those DNF drivers, but still trapped 5 laps down to 25th after he had that connection issue a little bit earlier on in this race. Also worth pointing out, of course, we were wondering, what was Nick Cohan going to do? How long could, he last by staying out? Well, still true to his form, is yet to pit. Been out there for some 78 laps now, but he's off of the lead lap now, so he's lost, that caution I think that he was hoping for. So it's just kind of fallen apart for Nick, because he was a top 10 car before, right? So it's not like he was a 25th placed guy who was swinging for the fences. Went a little bit off strategy from the norm by going for the 2-stopper, and then instead of cutting his losses, tried to catch a yellow. Now if he pits, he's going to be maybe in the 20s. So a top 10 run is just kind of evaporated out from underneath him.
It really has. It's so unfortunate for Nick Cohen. I mean, he's a guy that clearly has so much pace. I think it was just, honestly, a bad pit call that really cost him what could have been a very good finishing result here today. Slowing up through 3 and 4. Is he going to be making that trip down? Yes, he is. Trying to get down pit road at least. So finally, Cohen forced to bail down pit road for the final time today with 21 laps to go.
Maybe he heard us talking and was like, all right, I give up. Comes down to the pit lane. I believe that he is the only driver who still needed to pit to make it the distance in this race. Everybody else should be good to go the distance. Cohan joining Matthew Barra, Nicholas Amara, Anthony DeBarro, and Chris Edwards as the only 5 cars who did indeed opt to go for the 2-stop strategy. All 25 others in the race agreed on the 1-stop strategy, and that appears to be playing out to be the right decision. Nieto underneath the 24 Mercedes Davis, not for position. Davis still a lap down in 12th. Nieto is 4.6 seconds off of race leader Andrew Freenosh, in a great position to have a good outing, gain a ton of points. You can see even for a moment there on the leaderboard, dipping down to a 3.9 second difference. But again, unless Freenosh has major issues, then I don't see any way Nieto makes up that gap. One thing that we haven't talked really at all tonight about Nolan, but as well, I mean, lap traffic has been pretty hairy at several points tonight, putting race leaders 3 wide. Certainly been a little bit treacherous, when we've seen cars on fresher tires trying to get through, and Casto, maybe the king of them all, who has made so many 3 wide moves tonight. But it's not to say that Freenosh can back off too much in these final 20, because all those lapped cars are only opportunities for bad things to happen.
He's lost a good point, a good bit of time behind this battle, actually, for 9th and 10th between Michael Johnson and Bradley Burke. The gap was 5 seconds, actually, when he caught this group. That's shortened now to just 3.4 seconds back to Sam Nieto. So he has lost a good chunk of time back to Nieto, just trying to get past 9th and 10th place. And I think that could potentially be hurting him. He's also got guys like Dave Matson just up the road that he's got to be a bit concerned about. So Freenage has some work cut out for him. Definitely not out of the woods by any stretch of the means. As we look back up to the battle for 6th and 7th with Kevin King taking a very, shall we say, tight entry into turn number 3, and Sean Castro taking a very wide entry. I'm a bit surprised that King really aimed for such an early apex like that, because that seemed to just cost him in the runoff of the corner.
Yeah, there's always that give and take, right? I mean, we've seen this several times tonight. I mean, drivers have been able to make the moves bottom and top, but typically you're going to go way high up top, and you're going to want to kind of diamond the corner almost to carry that speed off. But I haven't seen a ton of cars on their own, I should note, you know, not actively in a side-by-side fight, just go to the outside and kind of make that their preferred lane. So that is certainly an interesting decision there, but he's trying to hold off King. King was really good middle of that first run, wasn't great on the end of the run. And we'll see if Kevin King can make that speed last the extra 14 laps. This would be about the point where he started to lose a little bit over the cars around him, and I think we're actually seeing that with Casto being a tad quicker. Casto's last lap, a 26.582. It was a 26.692 for Kevin King, so a little bit more than a tenth of a second back in favor of the 52.
It's those little tenths that can really matter in battles like these. You just have to take every little inch that you can be able to get. So Sean Casto definitely not going to be complaining on getting that extra tenth or so. It helps him to pull a gap out a bit more over Kevin King, helps him to be just that little bit more secure in that 6th position, though he does have some lap traffic of his own he's going to have to deal with. Matthew Mara just up the road, and Nick Silver just beyond him, and it's still a long ways up, I would imagine, to Liam Sheen. So I don't think Casto will be able to catch up to Sheen. I think he's a bit too far for that with only 12 laps remaining, which is, honestly, that's about 6 minutes or so of racing left. But I think you might just be able to hang on against Kevin King behind, especially since he is still continuing to grow that gap.
Easy King, I mean, putting the left side tires down to the yellow line, just doing whatever you can to try to get that thing to rotate, to kind of hook it around on the bottom and help that car out on these older tires, trying his best to keep this one competitive to the very end. There are only now 9 drivers left on the lead lap, but Andrew Freenage is about to make it 8 as he looks to pass Michael Johnson. I think it is quite some time since we have seen less than 10 cars finish on the lead lap in a RealSimRacing Sim Speed Shop Winter Series race.
That gap is still closing with the lead as well. You saw it just dip to 2 seconds just this last time by, as Freenage has been struggling to work his way past this lap traffic. Nieto has been slowly trying to reel that gap in. It was 5 seconds, down to just 2.3 now, make it 2.2. So Nieto definitely still has a shot to potentially go for a race lead, but he has got to start really hammering the laps in. You saw it dip to 1.9 that last time by through 1 and 2, but is it going to be enough? I think Nieto has to have the lap traffic up front and hold him up just a little bit more, but Nieto is also trying to deal with the same lap traffic at the moment that's hindering his own pace.
And I would be very surprised if Sam Nieto wins this race. And again, I know I mentioned that Freenage was going to have to deal with the lapped cars, and that was a factor, but we just did not see this pace out of Nieto versus Freenage at the end of the first run, right? At the end of the first run, Freenage was actually the best car of those two on the long run and pulling away. Part of me, the skeptic in me, says that this is likely Freenage managing the gap. But I think this is too close for comfort. If I'm Freenage, he's got 2 lapped cars to get around. Nieto got pretty lucky there with Burke. Didn't catch him at the greatest of spots, so that's going to cost him a bit of time. So just based on, runs, what we saw last run, I just have to feel like this is more Freenosh managing the gap and knowing, hey, I got 4 seconds to work with. I don't need to push it with these lapped cars, but it is starting to get too close for comfort. The good news for him is next time by, there's going to be 5 laps to go, so the timer is running out for Sam Nieto to get there.
Down about 1.5 seconds now. So if Sam Nieto can continue to log away about a quarter of a second a lap, he would catch him by the end. But Freenosh has hit the end of lap traffic up the road. So that is, I think, going to hinder Nieto all that much more. Freenosh is currently the 3rd car you can see up the road there. So Nieto has Freenosh in his sights and is still trying to run him down. But I still think I have to kind of agree, might be too little too late. Coming to 4 laps to go, down to 1.2. The gap is still closing. It might not be enough.
And time by 4 laps to go. Nieto has 2 more lapped cars in between himself and race leader Freenosh. Harry Grindle 2 laps down. Kyle Kamer 2 laps down. How quickly will those drivers get out of the way? Grindle going to go to the outside. Nieto underneath him. 70 car lays out of the throttle. Nieto can take the corner how he would like. That gap is down to less than 1.1 seconds now. 3 laps to go from Rockingham.
1 lap car stands between Nieto and Freenosh. He still has time. There's still just a little bit of time, but he has got to nail every single lap, every single corner. Lap traffic, battling lap traffic up the road is going to hold up Freenosh here as they're side by side with Kato and Johnson in front of him. That's not going to make it any easier. 2 laps to go. Nieto can manage to nail about 4/10 quicker each lap. He still might just be able to get there. Is it going to be enough, though?
0.6 of a second, but Kamer is trying to pass Freenosh, so the lapped car gonna put a move on the 88 machine, and Sam Nieto is there. White flag in the air. 2 car lengths the difference.
Nieto's still got a chance here. If he can get a good run here through 1 and 2, he might be able to dive it into 3. I think he's going to have to get a solid exit here, though. Backstretch final time today. Freenosh's run is cut off by Kamer. I think Nieto is just too far back.
Still 2 car lengths down all the way to 1 and 3 and 4, but he's just gonna come up short, and by the skin of his teeth, Andrew Freenosh hangs on, wins his 2nd of the Winter Series tonight from Rockingham. What a late charge by Sam Nieto, but he needed 1 more lap to get the job done, and instead Freenosh will expand on his championship lead with only 4 races to go in the year.
You know where I think Nieto lost that fight? Turn 1 on the last lap. You saw how deep he pushed it in, and he wasn't pushing it in, trying to diamond off the corner. The front end slid. I mean, that back end was starting to come around. I have a feeling Nieto just pushed it too hard in 1 and 2, and that cost him the run down the back straightaway. You have to wonder if that split-second mistake didn't happen, what could have been, as Freenosh burns it down as the first back-to-back winner in the Winter Series.
And what a job for Andrew Freenosh. He is still the man to beat, and again, grows his championship lead here tonight after round 6 at the Rock. Let's take a look at your Sim Speed Shop full race results. Freenosh margin of victory all the way down to 1/10 of a second. Dylan Parker as well in 3rd. Came home less than a second behind your top 2. We'll get some post-race thoughts from all of those drivers in just a couple of moments. Brandon 6 and Liam Sheen finish in the top 5. Not a bad showing for Sheen, who a couple of hours ago thought he wasn't going to race tonight. After switching to a new monitor setup, he beats out Sean Casto and Michael Araya 6 and 7, with Kevin King in 8th position, Michael Johnson in 9th, and Bradley Burke, first driver, 1 lap down, rounded out the top 10.
And for William Schmidt, started on the back row of the grid, was just 3/10 away from being able to punch his ticket into the top 10. He'll finish 11th, though 18 spots gained. Nothing to be mad about. Grant Davis is in 12th place with Brandon Bowie 13th. Brian Chambliss is 14th. Nick Silver 15th. Ross Cato is 16th. Kamer 17th. Harry Grindle, the first driver, 2 laps down to the 18th, with Dave Matson at 19th and Matthew Mara down to 20th.
So these drivers well on and out of it. 2 laps down to the likes of Rabel, and then 3 laps down, Nick Mara, Manatsi Manger. We talked a lot about Cody Harris's misfortunes. He passes all 6 DNFs, so he gets 24th ahead of Cohan, DeBarro, Winemaster, Edwards, Morano, and Russell, the drivers unable to go the distance. So look top to bottom at your SimSpeed Shop full race results. SimSpeed Shop manufactures sim racing hardware that utilizes the best components available, as well as mixing in real-world components to their products to give you the most realistic racing experience possible. Customize your hardware and rig today by visiting simspeedshop.com for more information. Proud title sponsor of the 2022 Real Sim Racing SimSpeed Shop Winter Series. Well, still waiting, Nolan, on our race winner Andrew Friedrich to join us. Must still be doing that Polish victory lap. So instead, I'll hand things off to you. Sam Nieto almost made it to victory lane here tonight. He ends up in 2nd position, and I believe you've got a word with the driver of the 2.
Indeed, I do. And San Nieto, 5-second gap was what you had to reel in. You managed to get him down to a 10th. And I have to say, I think the small little slide in turn 1 is what might have cost you a race win. But still, after what a late charge for you at the end of this one, it's got to be frustrating to lose it out by the slimmest of margins.
You know, it probably would have been frustrating if I could have seen the relative. I had absolutely no idea that I was closing in on him like that. I didn't know until I could physically see him that he was about 2 seconds in front of me that he had some issues. I don't know if he got damaged, if his tires got burned up, if he got held up or what. But yeah, I had a huge slide going into 1, and yeah, I guess you guys seen it because I couldn't do anything after that.
Of course, what this does mean for you, though, is that with 2nd place, you'll be able to put yourself a little bit further up in the point standings. And as we get set to go into the second half of this Winter Series season with just 4 races left to go after tonight, do you think you have any potential goals on where you're going to want to end up at the end of it?
No, I haven't been paying attention. It's been not a very good Winter Series for me, so I'm just here for fun and wanting to do the best that I can. So points don't really mean anything. I just want to run well.
Speaking of having some fun, you look like you're having a little bit of fun out there, and New Hampshire is a bit of a fun track in of itself. It's definitely a very unique one to the track as we continue on with the trend of each track being a bit of a unique one so far throughout the course of the season. What's your thoughts coming over into the Magic Mile?
I'm excited for it. I ran okay there last year. I learned something the second half of the race in the Winter Series and actually translated pretty well for the Cup car. So I'm pretty excited about it. I know Andrew's going to be fast, but maybe it'll snow.
Well, fingers crossed that it might snow over where Freenosh is and helping to maybe reel that gap in. And who knows, there's still time for you to find yourself up in victory lane before the end of the season. And you've shown that you got the pace to be able to put that car on the top step of the podium. Well, thanks for joining us here tonight, Sam. Best of luck next week at the Magic Mile.
Okay, thank you. I want to give a shout out to the Flat Out boys. We worked hard this week to get some pretty good finishes.
Sam Nieto bringing it home, 2nd place by just 1/10 over Andrew Freenosh. Such a tough run for himself on having to, finish 2nd place so far in this race. And I have to say, it could be a bit of an interesting one going forward. 3rd place has come down with us as well. We may as well leave the best for last. So we'll give a bit of a chat so far with one Dylan Parker bringing it home in 3rd place. And Dylan clearly catch you a little bit off guard, but you find yourself 3rd place on the podium. How's that feel for you? Mr. Parker, are you with us? Seems we may have lost Dylan Parker for a brief moment, and we'll see if we can maybe help Dylan sort that all out. But for now, Evan, I'll toss it over to you for the driver on the top step of the podium.
Yeah, I'll let you go play IT with Dylan Parker, and I am standing by trackside at a victory lane with 2-time race winner this season, Andrew Freenosh. Andrew, thanks for jumping in and chatting with us, and congratulations on the win. First, I got to ask, it looked like a really dominant car, and then Sam starts closing in, and I was thinking you were just managing the gap because you really didn't struggle at the end of the first run, but he got all the way to the bumper at the very end. Just tell us about those final 15, 20 laps.
Yeah, did a lot of practice this week, knew what to expect, knew how to save the tires, and I thought we were saving it fine. And then, Evan, I was the most frustrated I've ever been with lap cars. I felt like every other lap there was someone behind me with fresh tires had to go by, or we were getting split 3 wide, or, just getting raced really hard. So I guess I pushed it trying to get by. I think it was Johnson there, and it was just frustrating. You know, I'm so happy we got the win, but man, I was very, very frustrated. You know, we're going for a win, and the lap cars were just, I mean, that's his job, is to protect the lead lap if they get a caution. But yeah, I just struggled to get by lap cars, and I guess that burned the tires off. And I saw Sam coming, and yeah, I mean, I just burnt them up trying to get by lap cars. I think that's what almost did me in there.
You talk about all the practice you guys put in, knowing what to expect when it came race time. This is not a track that gets used that often. I think more enthusiasts will race it for fun on the sim because of the challenge that it prevails. But, you know, when was the last time you raced at Rockingham prior to practicing for this race? And what was it like practicing, getting tuned up for this?
Yeah, I think the last time we ran was Road to Pro. This is my favorite track on iRacing, so I look forward to coming here. But they added that high line, and I'm a bottom feeder here, so that kind of threw me for a loop trying to figure all that out. And yeah, this setup was not great. Extremely hard to save tires. You had to back up your corners. You had to roll center, ease back on the throttle. I had to change my whole driving style to race the setup here. So it was so much work, so much effort. I'm so glad it paid off. But man, the preparation was, I mean, we must have done 1,000 laps, and still going in this race, I was not as confident as I usually am. This is the one track that I come to, I feel like I have a shot to win, and truthfully, I should win. So I don't say that many tracks. I'm not very cocky, but here I kind of am.
This is a big one for you after the likes of Lariah and others took a small chip out of your championship lead last week, and I still feel kind of funny saying it, but with your worst finish of the year of a P6, you bounce back tonight with max points. You lead the most laps, you get the race win, you grow your advantage with 4 weeks left. I know there's always that concern that you might have to miss a week, but at least, you know, for what you've been able to do here through these opening 6, how do you guys think you're set up headed into Hampshire?
Yeah, I feel really good. I thought we had decent speed at Auto Club. I had the mistake on pit road. The road course, you know, throw that out because I just can't drive road courses. And last week we had a really good car. Sam missed a shift on the start, and that kind of killed it. I was thrilled that we finished 6th because that car at the end of the run felt like it was down 5 miles an hour. So just to finish 6th last week was good. Wish we had a little more points. And like you said, you know, we can miss a race anytime. I'm hoping it wants to snow in Talladega. I wouldn't mind missing that one, but yeah, I mean, we're just trying to hold on to it, do all we can. Like I said, we need a race lead. So, you know, we can miss one and still be in it, but, you know, that's kind of hard to do. So, yeah, I'm just thankful that I've been able to make all the races, and we'll see what the future holds.
Looking forward to catching that one. I got to ask you, I know you're sporting the Bring Back the 900 Horsepower cause on the car. The news lately for the Cup car is you get some of it back. Rumor is going up to 670. Are you a little bit happy, or do you still want that extra, 230 that's missing?
I would love it all back, Evan, but I'd like to personally say that I had a little part in it. I know that's not true, but in my head, I'm going to say that. I'm happy we got some of the horsepower back. I wish they'd give us a 750 on short tracks. It's a step in the right direction for the 1.5 miles to have 675. So I'm happy. I wish we'd get more, but, truthfully, I'll settle for that. And, that might entice me to run the Cup car this year.
It is your championship leader in the Winter Series and race winner tonight at The Rock, Andrew Freenosh. Andrew, thanks for chatting. Congrats on the win, and we'll catch you next time out.
Thanks so much. Have a good week, guys.
That is your race winner here tonight from Rockingham. Freenosh continuing to be oh so impressive. Nolan, tell me if you've heard that story before, right? I mean, he punches back in terms of the championship fight here this afternoon. It had gotten all the way down to 23 points in the championship coming into this race. His championship lead has now grown back to 35. So pretty close to a race's worth of points, to where in theory, of course, he talks about his job could possibly keep him out of a race if a snowstorm comes through and he's got to go plow. He's in theory close enough to the point where he could actually miss a race and still compete for the title, which I think is astounding. And if he's at a spot where he could miss a race and still win it all, then certainly these guys are in for a world of hurt if they're trying to get it done on him if he shows up for the next 4 weeks.
And I think that possibility is what drives him to continue to put in these excellent performances week after week, right, Evan? I mean, he knows that at any point he could find himself out of a race, and that could find himself out of a championship very easily. So it's good to have as big of a points buffer as you possibly can. So if that time ever comes, and hopefully it doesn't, but if it does ever come, he minimizes the damage as much as he can, which is why you have to push every single race, week in, week out. You cannot afford to wait around. You have to always make sure that you push everything to the max, and he has shown that he's willing to do that week in, week out, and no matter what comes his way.
Other drivers have good nights at the points. We talk about Sam Nieto. He picks up a little bit. He's up to 6, so he's up 3 spots in the points. Brandon 6 gains 5 in the championship, so he's now a top 10 car, so that's a big takeaway as well. Also, you heard the shout out to Flat Out Motorsports there in our post-race interviews. Flat Out, for the first time in a couple of weeks, held ground. Keeping it real esports, actually, their advantage in the team championship dropped very minimally from 51 points to 50, but he did close a little bit down. So Flat Out, certainly with the advantage of a good race finish here tonight by several drivers. And there's a look at your overall championship standings. No change inside of the top 6. Everybody stays in order, but Freenosh's advantage now 35 to Lariah, and a max points night's worth of points, 42 points ahead of Liam Sheen in 3rd. Not to beat the dead horse, Nolan, but we've talked so much about the schedule and how it's different track after different track, and that'll continue for the 7th week in a row. We head to New Hampshire next week, a racetrack that we haven't seen yet on the calendar. It's unlike anything else on the campaign, and that'll be an exciting one next Monday night as we get to round number 7.
And of course, the speeds are going to be a little bit lower as well as we get set to go racing at the Magic Mile, but it is a track that, despite being of a similar track length to that of Rockingham, it could still be, one entertaining racetrack in its own right. It's one of the only 1 mile tracks where the bump and run is honestly a feasible move of being able to make up a couple of positions, and you have to wonder just how physical some of the drivers will be getting out there as the points battles continue to heat on up as we get set to close out this Winter Series season.
And we hope you join us that next time out. But until then, that is it for us here tonight from The Rocks. On behalf of our entire team, our partners and sponsors at RealSimRacing, the entire team behind the scenes at RaceSpotTV, and for our broadcast team tonight. For our technical director downstairs, Hugo Luis, for Nolan Rempel, and myself, Evan Pasoko, I want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate Andrew Freenosh, now a 2-time winner in this 2021-22 campaign. We're back, though, next Monday night for the virtual New Hampshire Motor Speedway. That race and every race of the 2022 Real Sim Racing Sim Speed Shop Winter Series can be found exclusively here on RaceSpotTV. Until next time, good night from Rockingham, where Freenosh is continuing to grow his championship lead.